to read the obituary, and so we have a program you can read along with. Shomeir Gregory Howard was the firstborn child of Bill and Doris Richardson. He was born in Manchester, New Hampshire, and moved to Washington State with his parents and younger brother Gary in 1953. Eventually, the Richardson family expanded from 2 boys to 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls. As the Richardson boys grew older, they became known for their beautiful singing voices. Music and singing was commonplace in the Richardson household. This first song that was played is a song that Shomeir wrote, composed, and had a little bit of help with family putting it together in the studio. And so it's something that he had done professionally just a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, I think. Many events of the time shaped Shomeir. He was drafted into the Vietnam War in 1967, but served his time as a conscientious objector. During this period, he met and married Diana Scher. They had 6 children. Shomeir honed his skills and talents as a precision tool designer and enjoyed this occupation until retirement. Shomeir would marry twice again. His marriage to Yudia introduced him to a culture which would bless his life greatly. And Shomeir found that he was also able to bless Yudia and her children in some very significant ways, one of which for Yudia was U.S. citizenship. Shomeir loved to sing. Even after heart failure with a prognosis of 3 weeks to live in the summer of 2019, Shomeir found the strength to participate in karaoke, portable oxygen tank in tow. Shomeir refused to accept the 3 weeks prognosis and continued to enjoy over 2 more years of life in song. Besides his 6 brothers and sisters, Shomeir is survived by his wife Yudia, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, and their blended family of 7 daughters, 2 sons, 18 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. On the back is a poem that my brother wrote. I was widowed over 20 years ago, and he wrote this poem for my daughter and for me. And I'd like to read this also. It's called The Bridegroom Cometh. We are all works in progress, wondrous creations born of his love. Do not doubt he cares for us and watches from above. He yearns to have his children near. He is waiting for the day when he will gather us in and wipe our tears away. Our lives are but a season filled with joy and sadness, but soon, very soon, our mourning will turn into gladness. The day is coming soon, I say, and though we feel sad and alone, the bridegroom comes to claim his bride, to take her for his own. And that was written in 1999. The order of service is here. So we now have time for shared memories by family and friends. And so I'm opening up the floor for anybody who would like to speak.
I'm the second son. I'm Gary. And Greg was, that was what we called him. And he was my older brother. I couldn't say his name though when I was real young. I started talking at 2 years old, and I could not say Gregory. So to me, he was Greggy. And that's what I called him for many years. We started singing in church, actually. We went to a Presbyterian church in a beautiful old stone building in Auburn. And the hymns, actually, singing the hymns inspired us to start singing together and working on singing. And that's where I started singing harmony to him. And my life with him, our association, for the most part, the strongest part of it was about singing. And so at one point when I was in junior high and he was beginning high school, my father tried to see if he could get a person who was familiar with the music business interested in us. But those are always kind of silly ventures, I think. But it was worthwhile. It was kind of fun to do it. And we were always in the church, the little church talent show. And that was good enough. Karaoke was a good outlet for both me and him. So I started hosting, and he figured out where I was. We had our contact through the years is off and on, and there were years that went by and we wouldn't see each other. But these last several years, I saw quite a bit of him, and that was a great reward for me. And so I'm glad we had that experience later in life to get back together in music.
And I'm Rick. I'm the third son. Fourth son. I lose track. There's one between Gary and myself, Stephen, who lives in Switzerland. Anyway, so he's not here. So there were 4 boys and then 3 girls, and I was in the middle. Three brothers ahead of me and three sisters below me. And my brother was Gregory, or Shomeir. It's kind of weird because someone that has 2 different names, 2 different identities, you think, well, who's he talking about? Anyway, but when we were little, because he was so much older than me, I didn't really know him. You know, I was surprised once when he gave me part of his candy bar, because he didn't really talk to me that much, because I was this little kid. Other than Gary and Gregory would always try to think of ways to make me kind of get in trouble. So, but
That's what big brothers do.
that's right. So that part, when we switched, when I was 7 years old, from the Presbyterian church, that was just a standard Christian church, to a church that kept Jewish holidays. So it's a very different type of a thing. Now, I was 7 years old, but he was, what, 5 or 6? So he was heading into junior high or something. A difficult time to have these changes going. He liked poetry. He didn't. He was, through some of his teenage years, he was a little bit of a loner. And so it was, at least as I saw it from the kid. And when he graduated from high school, he was, at that time, the church we were in was, they were conscientious objectors because it wasn't something they believed in going into the crusade. And, but a difficult time. And he decided, it was very hard. And he decided, I'm going to go on an adventure. And so he went across the country to the East Coast to visit relatives there. Ended up in San Francisco was that during the Summer of Love?
It was a few years ago.
It's a few years ago. The same stuff was going on. This is down in San Francisco with all the hippies and stuff. And so he came home with kind of long
San
hair.
Francisco, nobody could read a calendar. It was
Long hair and boots,
and
it was and then he came back home. Since my dad was a barber, within a week he had a haircut and everything. But it was so there was these adventures, and it was a fascinating thing hearing him talk about his adventure that he had. We became actually a lot closer when we had to make a decision. The church that we were in kept the Jewish holidays. They said, we're going to keep more of a Christian belief and go back to some of the Christian days. And we thought, well, we can't do that. We're used to this. And so we then, from that point, we started doing things together and talking and discussing and getting into theology. And so we had a ministry together, had a fellowship together, and did a lot of things with trying to help people as we could who had no place to go. There were the church is split into about 100 different denominations, and we thought, well, if we just